Hello, everyone, and welcome to an episode of The Green Pill Secret. This week, we're talking about boundaries. Have I crossed a boundary by opening my shirt like this? Maybe. And that's what I want to talk about. Boundaries are very important in a relationship. And if you do not have boundaries, your other partner may be rolling over you. I once dated someone who was like, can we move in? Can we move in? Can we move in? And it was like, we haven't even been dating for more than a week. Boundary. No, no, you cannot move in at this point. I need to set some standards. That's setting a boundary. And there's nothing wrong with setting boundaries. No physical intimacy on the first date. Many women will set that boundary. A man must respect that boundary. That is a legitimate boundary for her to have. It's a legitimate boundary for a man to have too. I mean, there are women who will get intimate on the first date, especially at this age. Maybe not so much at your age, but it has happened. And a man should always have the right to say no. And much as that probably will make her more angry than any time you would be when you're refused, because she would just not be like, boom, wow, what the F? A man refusing physical intimacy? But no, it happens. It happens. And that's a boundary. Saying, will you be here at that time? But you can't. That's a boundary. You may set boundaries of any way, shape, and form. Boundaries are very important to a relationship. They're important to establishing limits. Say there's no boundary. Okay, I uh, let's say I'm a woman and I ask out a guy and I say to him, uh, I'm happy for you to take me out, but don't take me to a chain restaurant. Don't take me to a fast food restaurant. Take me to this five-star restaurant and let me order what I want and rack up, say, $200. And by the way, you have to pay. Now, that is a very unusual situation. I did talk about something similar to that with respect to romance scams, but this is supposed to be a legitimate date. But the problem is the man did not set up a boundary. And he should have that right to set up the boundary to say, look, we're just meeting. This is the first time. It's not that I want to save money, but I mean, think about how many dates I have to go on to find the right woman. Hopefully, he's not mercenary dating in such a way that he's going to drain his bank account. But the point is that it is well within his right and purview to set a boundary on the limits of where that first date might be. Don't like coffee? Ice cream. Don't like ice cream? Picnic. There's lots of great options. Maybe even just going for a hike. I know that I had one date which didn't work out. We decided we didn't want to be with each other. Me for her not knowing grammar and her for whatever reason she had, but it doesn't matter. Point is that we just walked. We didn't buy coffee for each other. We just did that. Or I've had coffee dates where I met a nice woman and we did date a couple of times. That works too. But setting the boundaries is important. And keep in mind that the woman that you may placate with that five-star restaurant on the first date is never going to accept anything less than five-star probably from that point forward. So you're backing yourself into a hole by not setting that boundary. If she's come to expect that that's the type of date you will always be providing, that is the type of date that she will demand of you because you didn't set the boundary. And just as she has a right to set boundaries, she could say, I only want to fist bump you. That's a boundary she sets. She's allowed to set a boundary. I only want to hug but not kiss. It's a boundary. Anyone can set up that boundary. I mean, doesn't mean that in perpetuity, no hugs, no kisses. It just means at this point in the relationship, it's not time yet to do these things. That's what I want to say is the boundary. Another boundary is being well dressed, not having your shirt buttoned down all the way to your belly button. For a man or a woman, maybe that's considered inappropriate. And as such, demanding that someone dresses themselves properly and buttons their shirt like this is really all that we should expect of one another. And so having the decency to treat each other with respect and understanding that we are different people, we potentially will have different ways of looking at the world, and accepting that those exist, those differences exist, and allowing boundaries to be established. For instance, boundary. I'm in my writing group. Please don't call me during my writing group unless it's an emergency. Obviously, emergencies need to get through, and please do call me in an emergency. But if it's just casual talk, I'll let you know that I'm from 6:30 till 2100 hours, or rather 18:30 to 2100 hours, or 6:30 to 9. Sorry, I mixed my time metaphors there. But the point is, on a Monday, typically I'm in a writing group, and I don't want you to call me during that time unless it's an emergency. Setting the boundary. Don't call me unless it's an emergency during that time. Now, it's impossible for someone to necessarily know that I'm in a writing group unless they've just listened to this podcast and know that that's what I'm typically doing on a Monday night, unless it's been canceled. And that's certainly needs to be taken into account. Don't consider it's necessarily a boundary violation if they didn't know the boundary was there. Establish the boundary, and if it's not respected, then you have a reason to be annoyed. But if you haven't established the boundary, there's no right for you to be annoyed. But do make sure you establish those boundaries. Say, for instance, you're getting a lot of calendar notifications from a shared calendar. You could say that that's a boundary violation. Please don't send me these. Or someone is mail bombing you or love bombing you in any way, shape, or form. Boundary. Don't text me after 10 p.m. Boundary. Don't call me after 9 p.m. Boundary. Or for the military, 22:21. Simply put, it is always a good idea to establish boundaries and having the respect that you will accept the boundaries and not consider them necessarily red flags. And that's, I think, something that I do need to underline. There are boundaries which could be red flags. For instance, a boundary that establishes a, I mean, essentially some weird procedure that one has to go through every time you meet someone or meet that person. I mean, a boundary, like for instance, a boundary where, let's put it the other way. For instance, she could have a boundary that she will never pay for a date. That is a legitimate boundary for her to have. Many men will be okay with that, especially early in the relationship. But is it necessarily a boundary that should be a red flag? Well, for men that want a woman that is not going to make him pay for everything, it is definitely a red flag. But for most men, they will take it as de rigueur, that he is responsible for paying, and so he pays. Respecting the boundaries, especially when they're reasonable, is the best way to go about these things. And as such, I I implore you, explicitly implore you to consider what are your boundaries in a relationship? Because if you don't have any boundaries, you're going to fail. You're either going to have a relationship where essentially you're with a partner who, seeing you have no boundaries, is willing to pull you to the limit of what she expects of you or he expects of you. And if you have too many, you may not find anyone, but having some is a good thing. And having some where you can essentially establish a positive relationship in such a way that the boundaries remain in place and are respected on both sides. And that's my story on boundaries. Thank you again for tuning in this week. And I promise I will button my shirt from the beginning next time. See you soon.